Hello, and welcome to the Bettendorf Public Library's Take-Home Workshop. Today, we're going to be embossing paper to make these little lapel pins. They're very simple, they're easy to do. In our kit, you're going to find a square of paper. This is a watercolor paper, so it's quite rigid, pretty stiff, but we will get it wet in order to emboss over our mold, and it will not fall apart when it's wet. So that's why I chose this. You'll see a little mold, a little heart. We just went with a simple design for this first one. These molds were printed on our 3D printer. So if you end up exploring this particular activity more, you can make and design your own molds and use our 3D printer to print them. You're going to find a little bit of glue in a straw. You're just going to need a few dots, just enough to glue your pin back onto the back of your embossed paper. What we're asking you to provide is a pin. You're going to use this in a couple ways, so it doesn't have to be a pin with a head, but something with a fairly sharp point like this. And that's all we need. It's very simple, so let's go ahead and get started. The first step is soaking your paper. We want this to be more pliable than it is when it's dry. So if you soak it in water, and you can really soak it, I've had mine submerged for about 25 minutes now. I'm going to take it out of its water and just lay it on a towel and blot it a little bit. I don't want it very, very dry. I still want it quite wet because we want that pliability, but I don't want it dripping all over my work surface. Then I'm going to take my mold and I'm going to press this down, and this is where the embossing comes in. So I'm just going to use my fingers. If you want to use something like, if you want to use a craft stick or anything else that will help you get her in between those little hearts, you can. I'm actually also going to use the head of my pin, since I have a fairly good sized head on my pin. I'm just gonna, and it's nice and round. It's not gonna give me sharp definition around the little bumps on my heart, our little design, but it's small enough that it can get in between those. And I'm holding it down because I don't want it to shift as I go. So once I get these little bumps designed the way I want to, as definite as I possibly can, the way I want to, I'm going to do the same thing around the outer edge, and I'm just going to start with my finger or fingernail. And we're just going to run around the edges like this. So that you have the edge all defined. Now from here you have a choice. You could use a pair of scissors or a sharp blade and stuff like that and cut around. I want my pin to have, you can kind of see it here, it's almost sort of a deckled edge. I want it to have that. So I'm going to take, again, my sharp object, my pin, and I'm just going to push it in all the way around. And you'll see how that starts to kind of fray a little bit. And what's going to happen is when I get enough perforations in there, I'll be able to tear that paper away from the mold without tearing away parts that I want. It'll just kind of go on this little seam here. So I'm alternating between poking it with my pen and just rubbing it, and you can see it's starting to fray away, but it's not giving me a very, very tidy edge. It's giving me a little bit of a deckled edge, and that's what I want. Once I have it perforated all the way around, I can lift it up. But again, I'm still holding it together with the mold. You don't want to lose contact with that mold until this paper is completely and totally dry. That's going to take a little while. So I'm just very gently, in very small sections, I'm giving this a little pinch along those perforations, and it's separating beautifully, but giving me just a little bit of a deckled edge, nothing too extreme, but kind of that look of handmade paper. Of course, can you do this with handmade paper? Yes, and it would be great. So we're going to take away some of these parts that are a little bit more than I want, where the fiber's hanging a little bit more off than I want. And we're going to go around and I'm smoothing those edges. And I'm working the little dot design again. Taking off a little bit more of this on the edge. And there you have it. Now I'm going to make sure all those edges are kind of folded back. And then I'm going to sit and I'm going to let this dry. And I want it to get good and dry, but I'm going to leave it on the mold while it dries so that it maintains these details as much as possible. So I'm off. I'm going to go do other things while this dries. And we'll be back probably at least half an hour or so. Our mold has been sitting for well over half an hour now, and it's good and dry, and you can it just pops right off. It doesn't stick at all. And you can see it has still all of our definition. It's kind of rigid. These are not designed for rough handling, obviously, but it's pretty rigid, and our little dotted design is in there nicely. So we're just going to glue a pin back on this. So I got these little pin backs, and one of the things I want to point out before we do that is you've got, obviously, you know, on the pattern on the front shows on the back as well. And if you prefer that design, then what you can do is you can perhaps not wrap your edges around so much, but just put your pin back on the back. I purposely supplied small pin backs so that they're going to fit whichever side you choose. So I'm going to take our little glue straw here, and I'm just going to poke a hole in it. And then I'll be able to squeeze out however much glue we need. Just squeeze it out like that and place the pin. I'm going to press it on there somewhat firmly, but not too firmly because I don't want to push down on my paper. I don't want to lose any of that embossing. And that's all there is to it. So I'm going to let that dry. While that's drying a little bit, I want to show you another one that I started. So this is one where I soaked my paper, I did the embossing, I cut it out, and then I wet it down again and I touched it up a little bit with watercolor paints. You can do watercolor paints, you can do colored pencils. If you are more talented in those areas than I am, I'm sure it will turn out better than this. I love the colors and the patterns, but I feel like my dots get lost a little bit. So when it comes right down to it, I actually do prefer it in the white. But that's probably more a function of my inability to paint with watercolors than it is with anything else. And it is purely a matter of taste. So if you want this colored, or if perhaps you don't like white and you want it red or pink or blue, just go ahead and color it. You can even color the paper before you do the embossing. If you're using something like a colored pencil or crayons, I would do the embossing first because those things are going to make your paper, give it just that much more resistance to the water and the molding. But a watercolor is just going to soak in and dry and it's not going to matter. So our glue on this one is not fully dry yet, but it's certainly pretty dry. So there you have it. Now again, our molds were printed on the 3D printer here at the library. So if you want more information about the 3D printer or any of the tools we have in the Creation Studio, just go to bettendorflibrary.com/create. As always, we would love to see them, so please share them with us on social media. And we'd like to thank the Bettendorf Public Library Foundation and Quad City Bank and Trust for sponsoring this take-home workshop.